And now our political insiders, Tony May, the Democratic strategist right here, Charlie Giroux, Republican side right here. Let's get started, gentlemen, with Mayor Thompson announcing, I believe it was just yesterday, that she thinks the city could be entirely out from under this huge mountain of debt by 2014, essentially by next year. Is it possible, or is this a campaign thing? Charlie.
If Punxsutawney Phil sees his shadow, maybe they will. I have no idea. I mean, we've heard these promises about, dealing with the incinerator debt through the parking system and other assets for a long time. Nothing's been done with them up until now, but they've got a year in which to do it. I think it's important to the mayor that it get done, even though she isn't responsible for it.
Exactly. This is part of the receiver's plan. That's the goal.
Yes, and the hope would be that selling the incinerator and leasing out the parking concession would be enough money to pay off the incinerator debt, but I don't think it was ever intended to pay off the other debts of the city, the water system debt, certainly not the school district debt. So taxpayers like Charlie and I here in Harrisburg are not going to be free and clear by 2014.
But isn't that essentially, it's going to leave us all, the city, essentially with no assets at all? I mean,
there's a good argument, Rob, for the city never having been in these businesses in the first place. I'm one that believes that they should divest themselves of these quote-unquote assets, which are really businesses, and get back to what the core function of government is. So I think these are good moves, and I think ultimately the city can get back on the right financial footing.
And I think Charlie has some merit here in this point. I mean, in other cities of the third class, the water system, the sewer system are operated by private entities, certainly the trash pickup system. And there's so much investment needed, as we now know, because of the 4th Street situation. The city could never afford to make the kind of infrastructure investments that are going to be needed in the coming decade.
Let's talk a little bit about Governor Corbett and the NCAA lawsuit that he filed last week. I talked to the governor this week. He explained why it took so long to file this suit, but Tony, you brought up the issue of the numbers. The fact that he filed is very popular with the voters, but they're still not happy with the overall performance.
Way more than half the voters think filing suit against the NCAA is a good idea, but it hasn't really changed his popularity. He's still underwater. 38% think he's doing a good job. 52% say they think he's not doing a good job as governor. It's tough to catch a break from voters these days, but especially because so many of Pennsylvania voters are Penn State fans, and they would have expected him to never have supported the NCAA rule. I guess he did.
He says he didn't support them. He said
he accepted it.
He accepted it, and then he looked deeper into the fact that the NCAA is an association, and he found a way to file the suit. He says you should read the entire complaint before you make a comment on it.
Well, he says that they didn't follow their own rules, and that was not known to him at the time that they accepted this quote-unquote settlement. Time will tell, Rob. I mean, this is an interesting case, but politically it's also interesting. I don't know what effect, if any, it's going to have on his approval ratings, but it clearly, as Tony has pointed out, in the short term hasn't had any great bump, if that's what folks allege he was trying to do.
Okay, let's talk fiscal. Cliff, we got about a minute left here. Congress, unless you had another comment. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tony.
Such fun, yes. That's fun.
Congress and the president averted the fiscal cliff with a last-minute agreement. Sort of, right? I mean, this train is headed right for another.
They kicked the can down the lane once again.
Well, I think Charlie and I owe the viewers an apology, because we both thought that Congress and the president would finally get together and do the right thing before the new year, and they didn't. They found a way to postpone the tough decisions until, well, 60 days? Is that how?
Yeah, March 1.
Yeah, March 1st.
And they've got a track record now that they can't, bite the bullet. They can't make the hard decisions.
Track record that they can't get along.
What's interesting here, Rob, what's interesting here is this was a lousy deal, but it may have been the best option among some really bad and unpalatable options. Some people would say that because nobody likes it, it's actually a good compromise, because that's the definition of a good compromise.
Both sides
but what's very interesting here is that for those of us that think that the national debt is a huge problem, that debate is what looms on the horizon. I think you're going to see very stiff spines on the part of the Republican House in saying we are not going to allow the profligate spending that's gone on to continue. Erskine Bowles will be two big words that you'll hear over the course of the next, or two big lettered names over the course of the next 2 months, because even he, a Democrat, says that's where we have to go, is cutting spending, not increasing the debt.
And unfortunately, Tony, we gotta go. We're all out of time. You can catch our CBS 21 Political Insiders every Tuesday right here on CBS 21 News at 5:30.